Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are WASN. This is Talking Point, and we're happy to have the important discussions of the day. Sean Michael Small joined with his co-host via Zoom, Mr. Keaton Shaw. Good morning, Keaton. What a beautiful day it is, not so? Nice and overcast, at least where I am.
Hey, good morning, Sean. Well, the sun rose this morning. It was absolutely beautiful. The sunrise, I was awake in time to see it, and now it is overcast, but still it's a good day to be a good day because more importantly it's Friday, and Friday is always a great day.
TGIF, thank goodness it's Friday. And one thing that we want to get to quick to get out of the way, there was the report from the Ministry of Health with regards to the COVID numbers. The main thing to be concerned with, but not to panic over, I would say just yet, the infections reported yesterday were at 800. However, we need to understand that 800 now is not necessarily 800 several months ago. More importantly, the way how reporting works, it doesn't necessarily mean that we just got 800 infections in one day. Rather, it was when the information was reported to the Ministry of Health. The information will be from samples over a range of days. But the number is still a spike. It is still something to take note of. And while we go through our day-to-day activities, we would just like to remind people to please be careful and not be complacent, because you might be fine at the end of it, but as my colleague could attest to, it's not necessarily going to be a pleasant experience going through it.
Sure, and just in relation to this, it's not surprising that the case numbers have already reached to this level, this high. Again, it's something that the medical experts they expected. I expected it as well, considering our, again, very controversial, but regardless, very factual, highly unvaccinated population in comparison to other nations around the world. And at the same time, the rate of infection we were experiencing here in Trinidad, now that everything has opened up, and for the most part, all restrictions have been lifted, unless, of course, the antigen test prior to your arrival in Trinidad, as well as the mask wearing mandate. With that, the spread is obviously where it's at, was expected. And need I say, it will continue to increase, it will continue to rise. And as pointed out by my co-host, I certainly could attest to the fact that it's terrible. It really, really is. And I was very fortunate in the sense that compared to others, it was mild. And in some instances, it was worse than others. But nevertheless, you do not want to contract any virus, any disease. But COVID-19 in particular was quite harsh. If you think the common cold really takes you out, COVID-19 is a different caliber. It's on a different level and a different nose in itself. And quite frankly, stressing precautions is one thing. But at some point or the other, you have to be mature enough and realize and take responsibility for yourself, which in turn will work for the rest of the individuals around you. So that's all I really have to say on this.
Meanwhile, I guess you could say one of the big stories coming out of yesterday, something that we don't necessarily have a lot of experience in. It's not completely foreign to us. Massy supermarkets were more or less, their operations were grinded to a halt because of a cyber attack reported to have not necessarily compromised customer and I think supplier information. But I mean, to me, this is just another sign of what I've been saying for the last several months. The economy is bad all over the world, and there are going to be more and more people looking to do unscrupulous things to try to get by or survive or even to just get ahead because they think they can. And we are probably going to see more types of crimes that are not necessarily common in TNT. We're probably going to see them not just here, but across the Caribbean. And my only concern is, I don't know if Massy is going to be prepared because they could restore their systems, but what's to stop whatever happened the first time from happening again?
Well, first of all, I am sorry that Massy stores experienced such a cyber attack. at least to the extent that they did. Now, I am no cybersecurity expert, but just off of the basic knowledge and research that I've done, I think it was rather premature on the part of Massey to indicate that none of their customers were affected. It would have been better to say initially customers, at this point in time, there's no indication that customers were affected. But it can actually take weeks, up to months, for them to figure out exactly who carried out the cyber attack, and exactly whether or not customers were affected, how they were affected, and in what way can they resolve that issue. And that's my only thing in relation to this. I don't want to criticize too much because, as I said, I'm no expert, but that's just basic knowledge and basic research speaking. However, it pointed to a greater picture because a couple of weeks ago, it was not officially made public, at least as far as I'm aware, and you can correct me on this, but I know that TSTT, for quite some time, they've been experiencing some issues within their systems and customers being able to pay their bills. It was very difficult for them to access the accounts of the customers. And it was stated within TSTT that it was due to a cyber attack. And for quite some time now, TSTT has been facing those issues and those problems. And now we're seeing that with Massey. And who is going to be the next major company or conglomerate to experience such a cyber attack? And it points to the bigger picture, Sean. Whether or not here in Trinidad and Tobago, as we strive for digital transformation, which is rather slow for some odd reason. It's no easy task, but it's extremely slow for some odd reason. Whether or not we have any measures in place in the event such a cybersecurity attack could hit the nation. Because you have to bear in mind now, terrorism is one thing, whether it be in the name of religion or whether it be terrorism on a whole is due to hatred, but whatever the circumstances surrounding an act of terrorism. However, probably the most dangerous form of terrorism now in this modern society is that of cybersecurity and cyber attacks. And as we strive for digital transformation, are we prepared? Do we have measures in place? Do we have policies in place? Do we have any sort of IT or technology in place to ensure that we are up to par and prepared in the event such an occurrence happens within the, not necessarily the public domain, all this is the public domain, but within a governmental portal?
And I mean, maybe that's why TSTT, apparently they partnered with a California-based cybersecurity company, Fortinet. Maybe that's why they're trying to deal with, I mean, even if they did not have any breaches, we do have to wonder if our infrastructure really could defend from any sort of cyber attacks. My questions are, do we have the proper legal framework in order to really support digital transformation? Which is not to say that we need to slow down if we don't have the legal structure to support it, but rather we need that legal structure to be determined and enacted as soon as possible. But I think what our viewers who don't understand fully what cyber terrorism could entail, what we need to understand is it's not necessarily, or it doesn't have to be limited to people in TNT that carried out this attack. They could technically originate from anywhere in the world. Now, it probably, or it could be somebody close to the situation, somebody in the Caribbean, somebody who knows a bit about Massey, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And therein lies the problem, because you have to deal with someone in a different jurisdiction, far away, who is hidden by levels of anonymity, who is going to test your security, and if there's a breach, it's very difficult to deal with it. So it's something to look at, because the flip side is, we know, I mean, Keaton, do you think that for fear of something like this happening, we should just continue with our paper copies in government offices and our slow bureaucratic pace of getting anything done? Because that's my only other thing. Some policymakers going to panic and say, nah, we can't afford this risk just yet, and they will put a pause on digitizing some part of our bureaucracy that's important?
So, in other words, we're sacrificing progression in order to maintain our current security status, which in itself is probably poor.
No, even
Sean, bear in mind, tomorrow.
It's even worse than that, Keaton. We're sacrificing because we also are not willing to do the work to get the security up to par. We rather just keep the status quo because it's easier.
And therein lies the problem. That's a lazy mentality, my friend. Let's keep things in place as is because we don't necessarily see the need to have expenses associated with upgrading our security systems. And this affects national security as well. But Sean, let's flip it around a little bit. If we remain with the paper-based system, a slow, bureaucratic system which is inefficient. But tomorrow, some unfortunate incident occurs where a local government building is plagued by a fire and burns down. And for some reason, that's the only place where it had certain copies of documents of individuals or whatnot. How are we going to compensate for that?
Yeah.
How are we going to compensate for that? So anywhere you go, no matter what you do, there is always risk involved. Walking down a flight of stairs, taking an elevator, there's always risk involved. The thing is that it makes it, with that risk associated with taking an elevator or an escalator as compared to walking up the stairs, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot easier, it's a lot more efficient, but at the same time, you can get stalled in it. So you are paying, there's always risk associated with anything, but at the end of it all depends on where we want to be and where we want to go. And if we want to catch up from this third world mentality to the modern world and modern society, we need to start doing things very quickly and stop just making these very, it's irrational promises of digital transformation. And I say that because, again, digital transformation has been touted quite some time now, even in the days of the People's Partnership. In their first instance, it started off with a laptop program,
yes.
Which was their first way of moving into the modern digital age. And then even when the People's National Movement government first came into power in 2015, it was a promise on the part of the Prime Minister. It was his vision. It was really his, I suppose, his legacy at that point. Which would have been digital transformation. His legacy has now turned into an airport for Tobago. But more so, back in so many budgets have gone, and we've heard from the Minister of Finance speaking about digital transformation. When the Prime Minister won re-election back in 2020, we heard him speak about digital transformation, and we get that it takes time. But so many years later, what's the latest? It's taking very slow because some of the records are not matching up, and we cannot actually locate some records. And this is the reason why we should have had digital transformation long ago, so we could have dealt with these issues. So no, I do not think that we should stick to paper-based records. I do not think that we should stick to a paper-based society. I certainly think that if we're having digital transformation as part of our Vision 2025, then we need at the same time to have a comprehensive cybersecurity plan. And you mentioned in order to create the legislative framework and enact it. My friend, that's one part of it. And you see this word that we constantly use on the program called implementation. That's a whole other story.
My only problem with the legislature side of it is I think that was something that was acknowledged years ago, because we've had internet, we've had online activity, whether or not we've rarely taken advantage of it in society, we've only now had a big push for things like work from home via telecommunications, online banking. The banks are reducing their physical footprint because of COVID, etc., etc. But those initiatives technically started from before. And there were a lot of questions with regards to what is illegal in TNT on the internet and what is not illegal. And I think a lot of those questions have yet to be settled, to be answered. So regardless of digital transformation or not, legal frameworks, certain things probably are well overdue by 2 decades, although you could argue digital transformation is well overdue by 2 decades. Now, folks, it was a hypothetical question. I'm not saying that there is an actual government administrator that's saying, no, let's not do it because I'm afraid of cybersecurity. But I do think it's a reasonable scenario, and Keaton more or less gave the answer that I 100% agree with, because at the end of the day, digital records allows for more efficient record keeping, allows for easier access to information, and allows for more transparency. And transparency is, I guess, one of those things that we're going to keep repeating over and over. Transparency is like implementation. Transparency is like diversification. Transparency is like annual administrative reports. We're going to probably keep saying these things over and over and over and over because they're important. But, I mean, what else can we say except, I guess, Keaton, I hope we don't see the dreaded cybersecurity on our utilities that I think is the worst case scenario for every nation, for lack of a better way to put it. I'm sure that's what the worry was with the blackout.
The only form of cybersecurity that we've had in recent years is the TTPS cybercrime unit. If somebody posts something to social media that they don't agree with, okay, that's what we are dealing with right now. We are monitoring it through our cybercrime unit. Or if somehow a minister's phone goes missing, they could locate it within 24 hours. I think that's the only form of cybersecurity that we've had in the last few years. So.
Well, I think we should take a break here because when we come back, I want to revisit a topic. The Minister of Finance, he released a video, the ministry did, where he explains the rationale behind the fuel increase. Now, Keaton and I suspect will easily agree with what he has to say, unless Keaton has some factual disagreements on the case that he makes. But I do think that it is still worth our while, for the very least, for the public to listen to it. However, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into that video. We'll revisit that topic, as well as a few others more on this Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Talking Point. Sean Michael Small, Keaton Shaw, we'll be right back.
I bought my last pair in November of 2021 and I loved everything about these glasses. I heard about Ferrera Optical Virtual Care when I posted to social media about the dogs mangling my glasses. As someone who works from home, I thought, why not give it a try? And I did. Virtual Care is the opportunity for me to have a video consultation with either an optometrist or an optician for my eyewear or my eye care. I'm looking forward to most following my virtual care visit the opportunity to choose my glasses, to have someone to personally curate the spectacles that I want. That's very exciting to me.
There's a taste in the air everywhere. Feel the vibe 'cause it's something to share. Smooth, rich and creamy, you'll find it right here. Makes you smile, relax a while, it's fun and good cheer. Ooh, enjoy every scoop. Ooh, every taste will get you hooked. We have flavors that you love, a combination special. Come along, enjoy our treats. This is Uncle Pete's.
North Coast Jazz 2022. Day 2, Event 2. The big day is Family Saturday. And the biggest stars are performing on festival grounds. Michelle Sylvester, Ruel Lynch, Patrick Gordon, Adam Hagley featuring Tony Paul, Leandra Head, Johan Chuckery, Sharon Phillips, Freetown Collective, powered by festival band Dean Williams and Company. Each master talent will perform a song from Lord Nelson's wide catalogue. Saturday, family May 28th. Together again. Festival Grounds, Blanchisseurs. Family, a tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby, St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Twin City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point. And one of the biggest issues, because it affects everybody, not necessarily equally, but it affects all of us, has been the raise in the price of gas. So the Minister of Finance, his ministry released a video. I know it's on YouTube for anyone that wants to search for it. They can get the full video. We have a condensed version of what I think is some of the more important points of what he had to say. So let's just run that clip and then we will digest it after.
At the prices prior to today, the new prices went into effect today. But last week, for example, the revenue that would have been generated from that $8 billion expenditure would have been 5. So the remainder that has to be made up by the government and by the Petroleum Subsidy Fund would be $3 billion. That's how you arrive at the 3. So we would be paying $8 billion for fuel and selling it for 5. And somebody has to pay that extra $3 billion. And the bulk of it has to come from the Treasury. We had set the budget at an oil price of $65. And at that price, the subsidy that the government would have to pay was about $200 million. The subsidy that has to be paid to maintain prices at the current level is an expense that was not budgeted for in the national budget. That is something people need to understand, because there's a lot of misinformation that, we allocated for the subsidy in the national budget, and therefore what are we quarreling about? It is not true. We allocated $200 million for the subsidy, not $2 billion, which is what it really is, $2 billion plus. So we produce oil in Trinidad. We don't produce fuel. When we had a functioning refinery, we produced fuel. But that did not help us one bit, because the same equation I just gave you, if you have to purchase the fuel from the refinery for $8 billion and sell it to the consumer at $5 billion, you still have to make up that shortfall of $3 billion. Our refinery needs about 140,000 barrels of oil being processed every day. Otherwise, it's not being used efficiently. And what was happening in the past is that the refinery, Petrotrin, would purchase 100,000 barrels of oil every single day, because we produce about 30 or 40,000. That 100,000 barrels a day in today's world, at today's oil prices, would cost Petrotrin $10 million a day, every single day. So take 10 million and multiply it by 365, and you will see what we're talking about. You're talking about 3.6 billion US. The refinery would have to spend in a year. The way the refinery operations were structured, the refinery was overstaffed, so that on every single barrel of oil that they processed, including the 100,000 that they bought every day, they lost $8 US. Because what is relevant is where are you finding the $2 or $3 billion from to make up the difference between the cost of purchasing the fuel and the price at which you're selling the fuel. We feel that you could subsidize part of it, so there's not too much of a shock on the system. But we also feel that we should take some of the expenditure and apply it to other things on the development program, as I told you.
So that is the Minister of Finance words, which on the surface, I think I could agree with. However, the problem is, take it a step further. There are projects that I disagree with. So while you are removing a subsidy, you have projects that I don't think is worth anything to the benefit of the country and the population that are continuing. So I have to ask, I agree with you here, but I can't agree with certain other things. And why aren't those things also cut or put off, delayed, cancelled? Keaton, what did you make of what the Minister of Finance said? Because some of the things we would have basically known already. The explanation for the refinery, I think, wasn't necessarily anything new. However, he's basically saying we paid the same price for gas from our refinery as we would have paid buying it from any other supplier.
That was a lot. You said that's a condensed version. So, I mean, that was a lot on the part of the Minister of Finance. First of all, for the most part, what he said, what I can agree with. In relation to $3 billion in excess, where were we going to find the money to find that? But then, and again, nobody saw this taking place. Nobody saw this war happening, which skyrocketed gas to oil and gas to, to 100 US dollars per barrel. But it goes back to our budget last year. I mean, how could you finance only $200 million for the fuel subsidy? That seems a bit odd to me. That seems very peculiar to me. So I go back to what the Minister of Finance indicated. He says, I've raised fuel prices 3 times before, and they have not righted as yet. So I'll possibly raise it another time. So I am constantly wondering to myself whether or not it was the plans of the government to, partially adjust or remove part of the subsidy further than what they did before. And they saw an ideal opportunity with the Russian-Ukrainian war to do such and the effects it had on the oil and gas market. Needless to say that we can all understand that at some point fuel prices were going to rise. I mean, we can't continue to have such a heavy subsidy on oil and gas. But the thing that gets me though is the argument in relation to the refinery. You said it, we do not produce fuel. But at the same time, Petrotrin, the way it was operating, needed 140,000 barrels per day in order for it to remain efficient. I don't think the issue really is that. I think the issue at the same time, he went on to explain the major issue with Petrotrin, and that was the staffing, how bloated it was, the structure of Petrotrin, how it was managed. That was the biggest issue with Petrotrin.
Well, one thing...
You're putting an explanation in it, whilst at the same time sort of counteracting your own argument.
No, one of the things that I left out was he pointed out that in 2014, when the subsidy was the largest, in part because the consumer demand for fuel was higher than it is now. So he acknowledged that was part of it. But also the price of oil was higher than it was in the periods around it. And the entire subsidy was paid off by the government. It was several $billion. I think, I can't remember the figure. But the point was the refinery was operating more or less at the level we could probably expect it to be operating now. And it did not really make a difference with regards to the subsidy that paid out because it was significantly more than what we would have seen if they had to pay out the $3 billion. I think it was, I can't remember the figure, but it was billions of dollars that was paid out just for that year. So while I don't necessarily know why it has to be so, I am willing to accept that the refinery, in fact, does not really make gas cheaper for us.
You also have to bear in mind something, Sean. Again, we all understand that there was an eventual need for removal of the subsidy.
Yes.
But you also have to bear in mind that we were purchasing quite some time now. We were purchasing oil and gas from Russia. Even when the refinery is operating, and we still are. So that also could have an effect generally on and possibly why diplomatically as well, we've seen the United Nations, Trinidad and Tobago, abstaining from certain votes. We haven't voted yes, but we haven't voted no. So diplomatically as well, that plays a role. Again, the issue that I'm having with this entire situation is overall is that in trying to balance up our payments and our expenses, you're only managing one thing at a time. Right, and you're only focusing and pinpointing on one thing at a time, which has always been oil and gas. And for years now, it's been the scrutiny of the fuel subsidy. So scrutinize the fuel subsidy, give us all the facts, tell us why you believe that it is not feasible for the government. And to a certain extent, he has, although an explanation will go beyond that. The thing is that you cannot just look at that alone, focus on that alone, and say this is how we're trying to help our economy. This is how we're trying to stabilize our economy. That's poor management when you're focusing on only that. There's so many other areas, especially as a Minister of Finance, that you need to focus on and look at. That I think, I don't want to use the term neglect, but certainly is blindsided.
Well, consider this. The minister even acknowledged things like contractors and suppliers having to be paid, right, as one of the uses for the money. Again, there were some things that we did have to cut. Now, we might actually be in a bit of a prison. It's a chicken and the eggs scenario. Which comes first? Do we get money to invest in diversification, or do we have to diversify in order to improve our national government revenue, GDP, etc., etc.? Because I do wonder if the government feels as though we don't have money to invest in new things, essentially big projects, big infrastructure to support new industries. I could believe that because they have bills that they're not paying. EFCL, one example.
My friend, that is absolute poppycock.
I understand. I'm not saying it's the right decision. I'm just saying they have bills that they probably can't even pay. So they feel as though, well, how are we going to invest into new industry? Meanwhile, the trick
is... is that they do not, they don't have the funds to pay certain bills. And yet still we're seeing things, again, say what you want, make all the arguments you want. We're seeing things taking place with, like, for example, we go back to our favorite thing, the airports in Tobago. Airports in Tobago is needed, but not to the extent. And we've gotten Chinese investors. In the meantime, once we've procured a loan, of which we know no details after that, we cannot pay off the schools that have been completed, but we are still carrying out repair works on schools that are dilapidated. New schools have been built and they cannot open it. So you can't say that we don't have the finances or the resources, because when the government wants to do something, Sean, when they are serious about achieving something or doing something, at the end of it all, they will find the resources. They will find the funds. They will find the means. We have seen that time and time again in relation to EFCL, as you pointed out. The government doesn't care about paying off that debt. The government doesn't care about having to open new schools. No, that's not important right now. At the end of the day, we'll declare insolvency and bankruptcy. We do not have the means to continue the company. And some of the other contractors are going to have to find the money, because once the entity is now absolved, who are those contractors going to take to court? Corporations all?
Yeah.
So the government always has a plan, Sean. This is what I'm saying. They always have a plan if they wanted to, and if they were serious about it, trust me, they would find the means and resources.
The point I want to make, though, is I'm not agreeing with the decisions necessarily. I'm just saying this could be a motivator. And my fear is that we have a little bit of an extra cushion now because of unfortunate events. It gives us a bit of a reprieve and a chance to maybe do things a little bit differently than before. And it goes back to what I said about Guyana. They're looking to invest in their manufacturing sector. They're looking to other things, like not just oil and gas. And I do wonder what happens when this extra bump comes back down, oil potentially goes back to $20 a barrel, because at some point it will, right? There's a chance that happens. And then we have much less flexibility because we have much less resources to try to make any moves to prepare for what comes after. I think basically there are two ways this goes historically. Oil producing countries either invest in the future and they are able to make the transition, or they don't. And when things crash, they crash hard. So that's the prison that I am afraid we are basically heading straight towards. A prison of our own making.
No, well, we're not heading to it. We are in it. We are in it. And that is precisely the reason why we have these discussions. Precisely the reason why we see more and more individuals coming out and speaking openly, at least using factual argument from the past and even equations to express their opinion in relation to what we're seeing on the part of the Minister of Finance and the government. We are in that prison. We're not heading down that road. We are already there. The interesting part is we hold the key to unlock that prison. You know, we've held the key that locked ourselves in that prison, but we also hold the key to unlock the cell. And we could come out of it. But this is what I was saying, Sean. If we were serious about it, if we wanted to do something about it, we could have. We could have. I mean, put it this way. The Prime Minister is not new and it goes beyond just crop farming. You can also look at ruminant farming as well and meat processing. The Prime Minister is not new to that. The Prime Minister has his investments in ruminant farming and livestock farming, right? But that's just one individual. What about the rest of the country? I mean, when you have livestock and ruminant farming is so integral to our country. I mean, put it this way, Sean. Did you know that we, on a weekly basis, we still import chicken to supplement the market?
I don't doubt that.
On a weekly basis, we still do that. You know, I don't understand why it is we can't invest in more farms. Again, we can even go back to looking at things such as the buffalo zoo. And people are going to say, well, Keaton, that is of the past. It clearly didn't work out. It wasn't feasible. In this market, in this world now, when people are looking at alternatives, trust me, looking at investing in the buffalo zoo one more time is, again, I'm not saying it's going to work, but it's a potential avenue that you could examine. And the question I keep asking is, how serious are we? Holland is a great export market for hot peppers, right? It's amazing. In Canada, a bundle of Shada Benny costs 5 Canadian, right? In Canada, it costs 5 Canadian. When you look at, I go back to, I've said this before, when you look at the markets in Japan, Germany, England, they stock their shelves with our local chocolate, with chocolate that is made by small companies in Trinidad and Tobago. They stock it on their shelves. Why can't we look at that as well? We've spoken about the timber and wood industry before. Why haven't we taken that seriously? There is opportunity all around us, but we are never ever serious about investing or exploring those opportunities. We are only serious about sustaining what we currently have and creating new opportunities by probably the easiest and most secretive of means. And I go back to Chinese financing in relation to what I just said. So overall, Sean, it is frustrating. It is stressful when I see that my country, my nation, my people have opportunity. It is there. The potential is there.
Mm-hmm.
And yet still, somehow or the other, we're stuck in that prison cell that we have locked ourselves into.
And I want to take that last point you just said. We are stuck. It's not the government is stuck. We are stuck. Because unfortunately, some of these things, foreign chicken is probably still going to be cheaper than local chicken. And if we want to build up our local chicken production base further, potentially it might mean a new economic balance point. That might mean some changes. Maybe a little bit of devaluation here, maybe something else that we might not like, that might have implications elsewhere. The balance point has to be readjusted. It'll take time and effort, and I don't know if enough people in the population...
In fact, you should start 5 years ago.
Right, but I don't know if enough of the population is willing to sacrifice a little now to try to improve things for the long run within 5 to 10 years. But let's stick a pin on this topic here. When we come back, we have a few other things to get into. Quite a few different things happened yesterday. But stay tuned. This is Talking Point on WASN, your content capital. We'll be right back.
A three-day event. Big Screen Friday, Jazz Family Saturday, Sunday Blues. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz, May 27th to 29th. Born here, played here.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And yesterday, just to highlight it briefly, there was a vote in the Senate over a motion in which the opposition and the independent senators seem to have been, playing nice because they tied with the government more than once. And I think it's actually a good thing, consider the animosity between the opposition and the independent senators over the debate with the Police Service Commission and the role of the president, that at least they could be able to vote for the same thing even after that incident. But that incident, I think, is very important now, because right now there is a bit of a question with regards to how the TTPS is being run, particularly in face of new crimes being reported, new types of crimes being seen with more frequency. One was the potential cyber attack on Massey. We don't know if the perpetrators were from TNT or if they were from abroad, so we don't have much information on the origins of that. But Keita, and you pointed out, there's another type of crime that is being seen with more frequency, and I think it just again shows that, you know, in these trying economic times, unfortunately, there are those who are willing to step on others in order to try to get ahead in some way, somehow.
Well, I honestly can't believe that we're speaking about this, but it's a crime nonetheless. It's something that we should highlight. Romance fraud, or what's being labeled as romance fraud, is on the rise here in Trinidad and Tobago. Last year, I think there were 33 reports, and thus far for 2022, they've had 16 reports in which 16 women have lost close to $1.3 million. Basically, what it goes is that we meet an individual, most likely online. We start talking to them. We become so infatuated, and then they start, you know, coming up with different stories that they need money in order to get out of a situation, or we need this, or I need your help, and you send money to them due to that infatuation, which at that point you will call love, and then you realize, hold on, I've just been swindled, and I'm sorry, you know, forgive me, I do not feel any sort of sympathy for the victims, you know, and to, I'm not trying to be cruel, I'm not trying to be harsh, but in this day and age, you really have to have a loose screw to meet somebody online and send them money because you're infatuated. They are telling you the words of the gods. They're feeding you the manna, and you are basically falling for it, and you're sending them money. Listen, people in Trinidad and Tobago, in this day and age that we're living in these economic times, please hold on to your dollar. Please hold on to it. Save your money, and you know, you will have expenses when necessary, but you don't want to go. And $1.3 million for 16 people, that's a lot of money. You don't want to become one of those victims. I do not understand how people could think to this degree to send money. And I'm being a harsh critic, but I have to be.
No.
Because at the end of the day, it's your money. You're giving it away. And then when you realize you've been swindled, you're basically saying, well, I'm a victim. But you're a victim of your own, your own ignorance.
So while there's a part of me that wants to say, well, Keaton, there will be those who don't know better. They're not internet savvy, tech savvy. Now, granted, most people now who are not tech savvy would be closer to the older end of the spectrum. To what extent are they being targeted in these scams? They still might be. However, while I do think, you know, you're being harsh, I do have a hard time saying that you're wrong, because I will say this. I don't know if there's any trainees who are scamming other trainees, but I do know that online, more than once, within the last year, I think within the last 6 months, I have seen some interesting things happen. I got some friend requests on social media, you know, all right, fine, kind of suspicious, foreign profiles that had no relation to me whatsoever. You know, okay, accepted it, because I do get a few of those from time to time. So, you know, I'll just see how it goes, right? Get some messages, and basically, the message that was sent was so painfully obvious, because we're not talking about somebody builds a rapport, at least in the cases that I experienced. Nobody built a rapport with me over the matter of days and weeks and months. It was by day 2. Listen, some sad story, and I need help, and the story is very fantastical and unrealistic. It has to be. It's very unbelievable. So you then now ask the question: who is going to ask this of a random stranger? Just because. Now here's the kicker: they will say, "You look like someone that I could trust," and I'm just like, off of a picture on the internet. That's not an explanation. Who does this? So in both cases, I kind of had suspicions before. So maybe that's why, maybe if I was more susceptible, I would have fallen for it. But in both cases, I did some digging, found the original owners of the pictures that were used, and tried to contact both of them to say, someone is using your pictures with a fake profile to try to scam people. So I get what they're saying, and I cannot, because of my experiences, I cannot say you're wrong. I cannot say you're wrong, because at least I have seen it, and it's painfully pathetic how bad these scammers are.
Well, Sean, Trinity's got very upset when KFC started charging prices for condiments. When prices increased by $1 for doubles, for example, people want to riot, right? But I'm so in love and I'm so infatuated, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, because at some point or the other, loneliness gets you.
Yes.
But you're so in love and you're so infatuated that you've never met this person, but you're speaking to them online, and I'm going to send you $10,000. I mean, really, folks, be wiser with your dollar. Be more sensible with your money. At the end of the day, I am sorry. I don't feel sorry, but I'm sorry. I'm apologizing. I'm saying I'm sorry. I don't feel sorry. I'm apologizing for not feeling sorry simply because y'all have created that situation for yourselves. And y'all are totally ignorant. So, I can't believe that we actually have to talk about this.
Here's a good giveaway. Here's a good giveaway. Yes, when we type on messages, we might have typos, but generally speaking, it would be an English sentence. If you have a profile of someone that's supposed to be from an English-speaking country, and the person has some very bad, broken grammar that sounds like it's a non-English speaker trying to type an English sentence, and it's not making sense in some places, it's probably fraud. Because they're lying to you about who they are. So whatever they're asking of you has to be a lie.
Yes, I've gotten a couple of emails. The most infamous one is the Nigerian prince scam.
Well, they're all kind of some version of that.
No, I've gotten some very infamous emails. Most recently, I've been getting ones about somebody has logged into your social media account. Please click here to verify that it's you. I refuse to click on those links. So people, listen, everybody's becoming more cunning. Everybody's becoming more smart, but you have to up your game and you have to be one step ahead of them. And you have to be more smart than they are. You have to be smarter. And honestly, when it comes to your money, don't put it under your mattress. Many of you all don't trust bank accounts, but find a good way to store it and keep it safe. Don't just try it and send it to individuals, whether it be in Trinidad or around the world.
So just before we close, I would also like to warn our viewers that this is not something the TTPS could easily solve for you to get back your money. Because again, a lot of these things are online, which means they don't even have to be in the country. Now, there could be Trinidadian and Tobagonian scammers preying on our own. But it tends to be people from outside the borders. While there are questions with regards to the TTPS and the fact that we have multiple senior positions not filled on top of other issues, getting back that money, even if the perpetrators are caught in their home country, is going to be very, very hard. So you need to listen to what Keaton was saying, and please do not press send. But that's all the time we have. News on the Hour is next. Stay tuned for that. When we come back, Keaton Shaw, Sean Michael Small, we will want to hear from you, the viewer. It's the last day of the week, last chance to tell us where we're wrong. I'm sure Professor's going to call in with regards to the refinery one more time.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm
almost certain he will.
I'm looking forward to it. In fact, News on the Hour, WSN, on next. We'll be right back.
North Coast Jazz 2022. You asked for it. Consider it done. Park in comfort at the Queen's Park Savannah and ride in style to festival grounds for the biggest family event. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Park, ride, enjoy. It's all about family. Family Saturday, May 28th. Together again. Festival grounds, Blanchishers. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby, St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Twin City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the Hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Burning questions, urgent topics, welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
A three-day event. Big Screen Friday, Jazz Family Saturday, Sunday Blues. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz, May 27th to 29th. Born here, played here.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Friday. It's the last day of the week, the last chance for us to talk to you, our viewers, on anything that you might want to bring up. What is your concerns? Do you have anything from earlier on in the week? We did speak about CXC. We did speak about the situation with the suspect or former suspect from the shooting last week, Friday. We did speak with regards to a whole host of economic situations. So call in, let us know what you want to talk about. Or is there something that we failed to highlight this week that is important to you? Call in, bring it up with us. We'll have that discussion. The number should be on your screen. Keaton, tell them the numbers for me, will you?
623-9376, 622-9338. It's Friday. We always like some good news. We always like some good news if you're willing to share it with us. But more so, as my co-host pointed out, please contribute to the topics that we had, or if there's anything else that you'd like to discuss and we haven't touched upon, well, we're always willing to listen to you as well. I'm curious to know, though, your opinions and your thoughts on this romance fraud that the TCPS is reporting on, because I'm absolutely baffled as to... go and spend your money on buying some food and some essential supplies for
buy some things for yourself.
Exactly.
We have a caller from Tobago. Good morning, caller.
And good morning, Mr. Michael Smalls.
Morning.
Doing a wonderful job there in the seat, driving the conversations. I want to speak particularly about the officer.
Yes.
That was shot. I'm hearing a feedback. Are you hearing a feedback?
Yes, we are.
I don't know why, because my TV is off. All right.
Go ahead.
I'll try to get through this as painlessly as possible. The officer being shot in the back, usually that indicates that it's friendly fire. And I hope that the police service does the right thing and do not only a speedy investigation, but don't try to muddle the investigation and try to pull the wool over people's eyes. The notion that, and I think I heard you said at one point that the officer could have turned around, that's not training. if you're shooting at a suspect in one direction, to turn around and face your colleagues and turn your back on where the line of fire is coming from, the opponent is coming from, that's not training at all. And I don't think any officer in their right mind or any soldier in the field will turn their back on where the enemy is shooting them from.
Right.
So it would indicate that friendly fire. And these things can happen. One of the things that people are not seeing in our environment and just kind of dovetails together is consequences for those who are not necessarily considered to be the criminals, so to speak. The so-called white-collar crimes, no one is paying for those things. So when your average citizen now who may have some criminality in their minds are observing these things where a certain class of people or types of people are not paying for their crimes, it tends to empower those who have criminal minds. It empowers them. It makes them feel emboldened. It makes them feel, well, if they're not paying, maybe I can also get away with it. So it's not really doing service to your society to not prosecute vigorously those types of crimes. That's my comment this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That is a good point. I did think, well, maybe the officer could have turned, but you're right. The odds of that are very unlikely. We have a caller from Maraval.
Yes, hello. Just to reinforce that old saying, a fool and his money are soon parted. That's it.
That's it, caller?
That's it.
Well, a fool and his money are soon parted. Well, I guess the question is, which fool?
Thank you very much, caller. I thank you very much. Caller is just basically, stating what I stated.
Okay, so I mean, for those of us who are not necessarily knowing exactly what she's referring to, because I can think of more than one thing, are you talking with regards to, right. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. We don't need to call them fools, the poor people.
No, she's not necessarily calling them fools. It's an old-time saying. It's basically
it's true.
Indicating that individuals who are careless with their money will lose easily.
Yes, it's true. I mean, some people might find it harsh, but unfortunately,
it's the reality.
It is the reality. It is the reality, unfortunately. So thank you for that caller. I would just like to point out, I don't know if you have anything to say with regards to what our first caller from Tobago said.
I just agree with him basically on a whole in relation to with what we're seeing generally taking place. Those with an ounce or a shrew of a criminal mindset or with a certain degree of criminality within their mind will feel very much as though things are working in their favor, if that's how I'd like to put it. But generally, the caller from Tobago, he calls and he makes his contributions, and I agree a lot with what he's saying. Sometimes there are a few things I don't agree with, but for the most part, he really has been, raising certain points and certain issues that we don't often think about. So I must thank him for that, and I hope he continues to make his contributions to the program. It's always good hearing from him.
Well, one of the things that came out of that shooting, it seemed as though, based on Romney's accounts, that the police might have been for what I would call panic shooting. One person yells out in surprise, so it causes the next officer in line to pull out the gun, draw and shoot, which causes the next officer to pull out their gun, draw and shoot. They don't even necessarily know exactly why they're shooting. But also the fact
shooting at or where we're shooting.
Right. But also the fact that it sounds like when you're behind each other, stacked up like that, well, obviously the officers in front of you are at risk of getting hit. There was a video I saw, I just happened to see it. It was a husband and wife police couple. They were
in the diner in the States.
They were dining, right. Yeah. And the key point was they pointed out the fact that the husband went towards the right, his wife took a wide angle to stay out of each other's line of fire. So not only am I considering now the TTPS, did they panic and just started shooting without knowing what they were shooting at, but do they even have the correct training to understand firearm discipline to not, friendly fire can happen, but it seemed as though this was a little bit more reckless than what it should be. We have a caller from...
Is there really such a thing as friendly fire?
Well, yes, but I could talk about that more about that later. We have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
Glad to see you all looking healthy and bright and very inspiring. Colin Tobago, he could be probably right, you know. He probably looked around. But what I thought when he looked around is because after he got shot, he looked around and said his fellow officer, he just hit me. And that's probably when he looked around. But I can't see it being factual that, you know, somebody should shot him from the back other than his compatriot.
Yeah.
And I just want to find out, I just want an observation I made on the news this morning. They were reporting an elderly gentleman driving somewhere in Southern, and he stopped, and then when the police approached him, he drove off, and then higher up, they had a roadblock, and then they said he drove over one of the police legs. Well, either for him to do that, either the police is on the ground lying down.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but I know what you're saying, Paula. I know what you're saying.
So I got to choose your words and how to report things. So I just thought of things and...
thank you very much, Paula, from Diego Martin. It's always good to hear from you. But, you know, I'm sorry for laughing because I'm not laughing at the police also for the TTPS. I'm laughing at the reporting on the part of the TTPS. And again, I go back, TTPS has so many information officers and media ambassadors that their reporting should have been a lot better. It's not the leg that they would have driven over, it's the feet. It's the foot, you know, whether it be his right foot or his left foot or both feet. But it wouldn't have been his leg.
We have another caller. But I'll just say this. When I saw that story that he was driven to the foot and opened fire, I wondered if this was again something similar to what led to the shooting of Officer Gilks. We have a caller from Chaguanas. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Professor.
First of all, I may owe you an apology because as usual, after I was cut off, you claim that I called your suggestion on the food position minor. But if I did, that was a misstatement. What I wanted to say was the effect on the public. The point you had made was minor. And the major one was the non-enforcement of town and country planning, especially in agriculture, and on state land management, because we have enough land in Trinidad here, suitable for agriculture, and least for farmers, to produce all we need in things that can be grown in Trinidad. That was the point I wanted to make. And today you made the point, why don't we invest more in agriculture? That is the answer to it. All we have to do is enforce our town and country plan and laws and don't have people depend on these things and have proper state land management for the lands that government leased. And I also made the point that certain prime minister had been interfering with these conditions to make the position worse. Before we hang up today, any comments so I could deal with it one time and tomorrow and next thing go on to a new point.
Just once again to agree, because one of the largest food exporters in the world, the Netherlands, is not necessarily one of the largest countries in the world. So at the very least, while it's not apples to apples comparisons, no pun intended, at the very least, it is an example that we could be doing more with regards to our own food security with the land that we have, but we're not.
I have no comments. I just want to wish you a very, very good weekend. Be restful, and we look forward to hearing from you on Tuesday.
To be fair, that's Karen's point originally. I got that from Karen, so let me make sure it is attributed to the person who said it first on the show. But thank you very much for calling in, Professor. So there is the professor. Actually, now I'm a bit stunned that we didn't get into the refinery talk. maybe I am setting myself up there for next week to get scolded by the professor for not doing my lessons properly. We have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning.
Hi guys, good morning. Thank you. I'm just going to answer one little part to what Keaton said. I don't think it's ignorance that's scam. Well, the people's reaction, it's just stupidity, Keaton. I mean, it's more than ignorance.
I didn't want to use the word stupidity, but thank you for at least saying it.
Okay, well, sorry about that then. Okay, ignorance.
No, you're right, though. You're right. You are right.
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh, ignorance is if you just don't know, but how could you not know? Something like that.
Exactly.
I have two real easy questions, because Keaton is still sick.
Keaton is better. Keaton is just being precautious for the sake of his good friend, Sean.
Great, of course. Yeah, two? Easy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, another world leader spoke to Putin across the 20-foot table on Tuesday, right? And told him the war must end as quickly as possible. That person then concluded the war will not end with meetings. It will end when Putin decides to end it. Who was that person? Antonio, Joe, Ursula, or Emmanuel?
It wasn't Emmanuel. It has to be Ursula.
Not Emmanuel, right?
Antonio?
He didn't go back, yes.
Yeah.
Antonio.
It has to be Antonio, yeah.
Right, of course, it was Antonio. But by the way, I'm happy Emmanuel beat out Marine. I mean, she's just like crazy.
I think she's just saying what she thinks people want to hear to get votes. I don't think she's genuine. Which
well, then she's
that's a different
you
problem.
know who from America.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, why has Putin stopped the gas to Bulgaria and Poland? Because they won't pay in rubles or they're buying from the US.
Both?
I think No. I think more so it's because of the rubles.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't.
Okay.
But Germany's saying maybe they might. Well, you know Germany, or they will reconsider. No, but this one is a real joke. And if you all do not get this, you don't deserve a good weekend.
Oh,
Who is
no.
about to buy Twitter for $44 billion?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos?
Elon Musk.
Yeah,
No. Is the correct answer Coca-Cola?
Elon Musk.
It's Elon. But check it out.
I know.
He was worth $239.2 billion on Tuesday, right? Which was $74 billion more than Jeff. And his worth changes by the day. Because on Monday he was only $269 billion. So. And he thinks there's not enough disinformation on Twitter. You know, so he just wanted to buy it for free speech. Yeah. So Eid Mubarak to the Muslims. Have a great weekend to everyone else. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much. A wonderful call to really wrap up the week, I suppose.
I guess. I mean, just to poo-poo a little bit of the good vibes. I do want to. Yes, I know. Sean likes to poo-poo good things, but in Ukraine, we do have to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, as it was rightfully said, it will end probably when Putin decides it will end, because the war seems to be going at a snail's pace. Neither side is gaining much ground right now, but more importantly, some of the rhetoric coming out of Russia, coming out of Moscow, including coming out of Russian television, you would swear that these are either the mouthpiece of a dictator or the dictator themselves, but these are the media people who are very serious in some of the crazy things that they say with regards to Ukraine, with regards to Ukraine is not a real country, it doesn't really exist, they rightfully own it. I was kind of stunned even knowing that there would be some level of propaganda. Maybe it's because I don't understand North Korean, so I don't understand their propaganda really when you hear clips of it. This thing that is called a special operation, I don't know exactly when it will end. The fighting in Ukraine might end soon, but what caused it to happen, the motivation behind it, might drive further conflict in the region, which unfortunately causes more instability, threatens more instability, and it makes food security even more important.
I just wanted to the caller from last caller from Diego Martin in relation to Marine Le Pen. If you get the opportunity, do some research on her. It's amazing, her story. Really, what was her major influence in her life was her father. Her father was not much different. In fact, her father was probably worse than she is actually. And she actually kicked him out of the party. Like, you literally kicked him out of the party. So when you get the chance to do some research, this is her third election that she's ran, and she's lost it for the third time, but she's actually gained more support this time around than before. So it's interesting, the tides of Europe, how it's changing. And to the first caller from Maraval, a fool and his money would soon part ways, would easily part ways. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Thank you very much for calling and stressing that quote, because it ties in with what the caller from Diego Martin was saying. I chose not to use the word stupidity because, put it this way, I thought ignorance would have been a bit more diplomatic, but I suppose not. But you're right, it's absolute stupidity. It's absolute stupidity, and I cannot believe that people are falling for this. But if you lose your money, I mean, you did it yourself as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, you're crying over spilt milk. You're crying over something that you honestly did to yourself. I mean, another lesson that you should learn, don't mistake infatuation for love. Loneliness is a hell of a thing, but do not mistake infatuation and love.
And also consider that those are the ones we know of that were reported. There are probably situations that weren't reported. Maybe people kind of realize, oh no, I've been scammed. Or they were hoping it wasn't a scam. They knew better. There probably is a couple of people out there that knew better, but hoped against their better judgment that it wasn't a scam because they wanted what was too good to be true. And then they know better than to try to report it. They want to spare themselves the embarrassment because the money is more or less gone.
No, and
in those cases, Keaton, I have no problem. If you did that, calling you stupid, I think is more than reasonable. If somebody did that.
At the same time, what the correct procedure and the right thing to do is to go to the TTPS to report a crime or what you deem to be a crime. But at the same time, to all these victims who have gone to the TTPS, if you are hoping that you get your money back, or you're hoping that the TTPS does something, then honestly, my advice to you is just keep your fingers crossed, hold on, and don't spend any more money. Simple.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is more or less at the end of our week. Hopefully next week, Tuesday, not Monday, Tuesday, we'll be back with live episodes of Talking Point. Hopefully Keaton will be back with me live so that we don't have to necessarily do the Zoom, because, it's not as fun when we have to have these technical barriers. My last words going out for the week, I just want to reiterate something. We started off the show with just warning people to be a bit attentive to COVID and your public health measures. Be a bit attentive to that. Just note, and I think, Keaton, you asked this question with regards to antigen testing. I believe it was reported that the ministry does not necessarily take antigen test results into account. So home test kits, people who test positive there are probably not included in the 800. So the infection rate might be even more than we think. Again, we don't have to panic. We don't have to lock down. But we do just need to not be complacent and do the few things to try to avoid getting sick, because as Keaton said, you don't want to get sick, even though it's the milder version. Keaton, the floor is yours to close the weekend.
It certainly has been an interesting week doing the show virtually. I would not look forward to the traffic next week Tuesday, but I certainly will look forward to joining you again once more in studio. To all our callers, thank you very much for your contributions. And finally, as I wrap things up, I always say, today is Friday. It's a good day to have a good day, and never a better time to have a great weekend. Well, I mean, it is the weekend, so you might as well have a great weekend. But Eid Mubarak to the Muslim community and to Trinidad and Tobago. I look forward to seeing you, hopefully, fingers crossed, on Tuesday morning.
This has been Talking Point. We are WESN, folks. We'll see you next week, Tuesday. Bye-bye.